So I've been playing Session for a few weeks now, and I have some thoughts. Now, growing up with games like Skate, I've been interested in skateboarding my whole life. However, after playing Skate, Tony Hawk's didn't quite cut it for me. Now, one of the big issues in this skateboarding gaming market over the past few years is there hasn't really been anything good coming up. In my personal opinion, I've always felt like Skate 3 was the last good skateboarding game there was. But recently I broadened my horizons and I tried games like Skater XL, which to me felt a little bit too cartoonish. So the last option left for me to try was Session. Now, my first week of using Session was an absolute nightmare. I found it absolutely unplayable. In fact, I've written a whole video script about how I think it's the worst skateboarding game ever made. But boy, was I wrong. After an extra week of giving it a try and really getting into the feel and the groove of the game, and more particularly getting used to the controls, I've started to feel like it's probably one of the best skateboarding games ever made. Now, I will say straight off the bat, if you download this game, you will struggle with the controls for at least a week or two, especially if you're coming off the back of playing games like Skate 3. It is a nightmare to wrap your head around, but once it becomes muscle memory, this game is really enjoyable. So the controls for sure do let the game down in that area. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the feel of the game. The game feels great to play. You actually feel like you're connected to the skateboard. It doesn't feel like you're just pushing buttons, and each joystick corresponds to a leg, whether it's your front leg, back leg, or left leg, or right leg. You can choose the options. So you feel like every single input you make perfectly controls the skateboard, and you can really customize your skating style. In all the menu options for the game, you can adjust how much the trucks move, whether you get wheel bite, whether you turn on dark slides, or whether you can do dark catches on the board. There's so many different options to customize this to your play style. Now, at this point, it's worth saying that this is a skate simulator, not a skateboarding game. Whilst there are challenges to complete, this isn't something that you do for 5 minutes to kill some time. You really do have to pay attention to what you're doing, because even as I've got more comfortable playing the game, I still make mistakes. In fact, at the end of the video, you'll see a lot of them. Now, the creators of Session have definitely put a lot of thought into how the game feels to skaters. There's a lot of recognizable skate brands, and even things like wheel sizes are far more accurate to what we'd actually see in real life. Now, unfortunately, that's where the majority of the good stuff ends. The rest of the stuff is the bad stuff, but I still don't want this to take away from how good this skate simulator really is. So the first thing I will say is there's a lot of glitches, especially if you're playing this on the PlayStation 5 like I am. But there's a lot of weird glitches. For example, sometimes the controller would just stop working, so you have to pause the game and then unpause the game to get things working again. The prime culprit of this is the session markers. Sometimes it won't reset to a session marker, so you've just got to pause the game and unpause. Next is when you run and try and jump onto the board, it does this really weird glitching thing. Don't know why it does this, but it's really disorientating. And the next is that your wheels will just bite onto the ground for no reason. Even with truck bite settings turned off, you'll just fall off your board for no reason. I'm not too sure why. Then we have loads of little weird things, like for example, on some grinds your feet will do this. But to be honest, all of those things you can live with. I think the biggest problem by far is how difficult it is. Now, of course, like I said earlier, it's a simulator. It's not necessarily a game, but for me, I can play Skate 3 whilst watching a podcast in the background. I can be doing something else. With a game like this, just to get all the footage you're seeing now, there was a lot of failed attempts. Now, I'm going to leave all of these fails running in the background whilst I talk about the conclusion. Overall, I do feel like it's something that's worth getting, but you do need to put the time in to get the results. When you do land a trick, it feels far more rewarding than it does in games like Skate, but it's also very hard to get to those results. Now, all of this footage of my fails in the background, this only really accounted for like 10% of the fails that actually took place in getting all of this footage. I genuinely couldn't be bothered to sit through 2 hours of footage just to cut up all the fails. This video would be 25 minutes long. And for example, with this clip, you can actually see how many attempts it took me to finally land the trick. In total, this was about 10 minutes of trying to land the trick, which doesn't seem like too long, but you feel it when you're in the game. It feels like a lifetime. So if you have the patience to try something like this and you think you might find it enjoyable, I promise you, if you do get it, stick at it for 2 weeks or so, you will start to enjoy it. For me personally now, if I had to choose between Skate 3 and Session, I would choose Session every day of the week. But it's a really weird one to get used to, and it all depends how much time you're willing to put into it to get that reward bored back out of it. But like I said earlier, my original script for this review was bashing Session because I just couldn't wrap my head around it and I couldn't find how people could find it enjoyable. But after sticking at it, I'm addicted. I'm hooked. And recently on my PlayStation Portal, I'll sit on the sofa and I'll play this for like 3 hours. In fact, considering I'm a Grand Theft Auto channel, I've been playing this more than I've been playing Grand Theft Auto for the past couple of weeks. So that's as big of a compliment I can give. Let me know what other games you want me to try out in the comment section down below. And if you did enjoy, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.